Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Debra Eckerling, author of your Goal Guide and creator of the Deb Method for Goal Setting Simplified. You can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people. So every week I bring together some of my people to dive into the topic. And today we're talking about one of my favorites, which is change, because, well, your Goal Guide goals. I'm all about helping people embrace change by choice or by circumstance. And let's face it, we always tend to have a lot of both. So really excited for today's panel. I have fellow marketing podcast networker, Joseph Jaffe. So really excited to have you on and dive more deep into you. And your show is Jeffrey Joseph's Not Famous. And of course, we need to dive into that because best show title ever. AJ Lauer, who's one of my Innovation Women friends, so always good to see you, and Regina Roberti, who I met through the podcast world as well. So I know it's going to be fun, and we appreciate you tuning in. You may be watching this as GoalChat Live or the replay, or listening to us as the GoalChat podcast on the Marketing Podcast Network. No matter how you found us, we're glad you're here and choosing your goals to change a little bit of all the above. Amazing. So before we dive in, I would love for you all to introduce yourselves better. So please share, who you are, why you're here, and what it is that drew you to this topic of change. So Joseph, start with you.
So, well, first of all, it's good to be here, fellow podcaster, fellow marketing podcaster. I describe my life now BP and AP, which is before pandemic and after pandemic. And before the pandemic, I worked for a fast food chicken company. I worked on Madison Avenue. I started 2 companies. One I sold in spite of myself, one I closed down because of myself. Wrote 5 books, keynoted in over 50 countries. And then this little pesky pandemic happened and everything just disappeared, like literally overnight. And I completely pivoted because I did what most people would do in that situation, which is I started a talk show called Corona TV, which today is known as Joseph Jaffe Is Not Famous. And I've had 700 guests on the show, from Jamal Mashburn to Carol Baskin to Patrick Fabian, who played Howard Hamlin on Better Call Saul, Dan Pink, Seth Godin, and the list goes on. I started teaching at NYU, and about a year ago, I became a business and a leadership coach, helping implement a system called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So change is part of my DNA. I only know change. I can only exist in change. And as the saying goes, right, which is the only constant in life is, 3, right? Death, taxes, and change. So may as well embrace it.
Awesome and amazing. And I should also add that this show also was born from the pandemic, because for years I led the GoalChat Twitter chat, which I sunsetted about a year and a half ago because of all the toxicity on that platform. But this was the guest version. So I would do the chat on Sunday night, and then Monday discuss the topic. And it actually started as a me talking show that lasted twice. And then I started inviting guests in. And then at the end of that first year, I said, how do you throw a party when no one can leave the house? And that's when I started doing panel shows. And here we are. So definitely fun.
I feel like I'm in a party right now. So
as well, you should, because it's unless it's on purpose, my guests do not know each other. It always makes for some fun, enlightening conversation. And I do have to give you the hat tip, because you were the one who inspired the conversation. I said, okay, what do you want to talk about? And it's like, Deb, is it a question?
So blame me, basically.
Yeah.
Blame me.
Yes, we are blaming you. And this is when you say you're welcome.
You're welcome.
AJ, thank you. AJ,
Thanks,
welcome.
Deb. Thanks, Deb. My name is Dr. AJ Lauer. I use she, her pronouns. I am the owner of Thriving Ibis Leadership Solutions. And speaking of change, my company is only about 7 months old today, in the next week. And So my background is actually in higher education administration. I have run dorms. I have run student unions. I have taken students on field trips all over the country in buses, which is harrowing. Uh, and then I landed in this strange field called high performance computing. And high performance computing is the forefront of computing. It is room size computers that are doing things from predicting weather and climate to solving COVID issues and analyzing DNA and figuring out what we need to do with vaccines. But HPC has a workforce problem. It's extremely male dominated. And I was working on running an internship program that had a goal of bringing more diversity to this tiny little field of HPC. And so I did that for about 8 years. I wrote my dissertation about the culture within this tiny little niche field of high performance computing. And then about a year ago, I decided to leave the organization that I had been working at for 8.5 years and strike out on my own. So when you talk about change, I've also seen a lot of it in the last, I would say the last 7 years have been pretty constant change for me. So I'm excited to talk about this with you all and see what your perspectives are.
I think we're all for it. And I'm really happy to have you as part of the panel as well. Regina.
Hi.
Welcome. Hi.
Thank
Good
you.
to have you here. Please share who you are and why you love change, because we decided that we do.
So change is just imminent, right? It's a part of our lives on any given day, any given minute, right? And all the choices that we make every single day change the direction that we're going to go. So I've been in the health and wellness industry doing body work since 2010, so a little over 14 years. And through the process of learning about health and the body and the mind, I decided to get my degree in alternative medicine. And I went to school, had 2 babies. My life changed dramatically once I had kids. I went to just being like a stay-at-home mom to getting back in the field and realizing prior to COVID that I needed to do something differently. I just didn't know what. And I saw a huge correlation between the mind and why the body has all of these physiological symptoms. So I decided to start looking into the coaching industry because I was done going back to school. And being a homeschool mom of 2 boys, it's a lot. And so I decided to start looking into certifications for self-sabotage coaching, which led me into hypnosis, which led me into health coaching, and also into a newer form of hypnosis, which I absolutely am obsessed with, called advanced conversational hypnosis. And when I realized that I could become a trainer for that and teach professionals how to do the modality, I got licensed to become a trainer. So my life is just forever in change mode. There's nothing you could do to stop change. And so embracing change is something that I've really consistently become a professional at in my life. So I love to be a part of this conversation.
Fantastic. And yes, change inevitable and important. And as I mentioned before, so my book came out, Your Goal Guide, in January 2020. So it was all about helping people embrace choice, either by change or circumstance. And then 6 weeks later, we all got changed by circumstance. And I think, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, okay, but we can go to 10, but really in the pre-COVID versus post-COVID, I think people approach life a lot. They're either tunnel vision or they're like us and say, okay, what's next? So let's start with, how do you define change? And I know it's a big question, but we have some time. Joseph, what is your definition of what I believe is now your favorite word?
I mean, the definition, I'm not going to think about what the actual dictionary definition is, but kind of just internalize it and make it personal. And it is really just things being different from what you expect, from the norm, from a comfort zone or a safety zone. the brain is hardwired to resist change. The brain compartmentalizes. The brain immediately says, where have I seen this before? And attempts to put square pegs in square holes and round ones in round holes. And you have to almost short circuit or circumvent the way that the brain actually functions in order to be able to embrace or respond positively to this change in stimuli. But the fact is, we drive the same way to work. We go to the same Starbucks and order the same triple decaf, and no soy, no foam, no taste. I don't know, whatever latte. And the status quo is, as I said earlier, is comforting, and so therefore change is uncomfortable or discomforting, and learning to embrace that change is super hard. And I guess that's why they say entrepreneurs are masochists, because we love pain. The one thing that I always will say and teach people is, change happens, and I know you all know this quote, but change happens when the pain of not changing is greater than the pain of changing. And why I love it is the fact that there is pain in both cases. So you have to you have to choose between lesser of evils, maybe, or if you really love pain, again, you're a masochist. Pain can be pleasure. No, no pain, no gain. And so, teaching us to kind of embrace this thing called change is essentially teaching us to be alive and to stay alive and to adapt and evolve. And I'll just kind of, another quote. The business that I closed down was called Evolution. Started by, not started by, I think he's passed on, Charles Darwin, but the whole concept of, it is not the strongest of species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but rather the one that is the most adaptable to change. So for me, change is essentially a survival mechanism, and if done really well, can become a thrival one.
I love that, because isn't that the goal? I mean, and goal, love the word, but isn't that why we set goals? Is because we want something different. We've got things that we are aiming for to make some improvement. You can't get what you want unless you know what that is, and then sometimes you need to change to get where you want to go. But who you are, I
Well,
think, remains, right?
one of the things that we actually coach as part of EOS is this concept that Jim Collins spoke about, which is, the right people in the right seats. But he actually talks about this idea of, you don't decide where you want to go and then go and find the people to get on the bus. You get the right people on the bus and then figure it out. And so that's the whole point, right? Which is, I mean, you had a book come out about goal setting, and 6 weeks later, I wrote a book. My 5th book was called Built to Suck: The Inevitable Demise of the Corporation and How to Save It. And that book came out a year before COVID. Talk about almost a premonition or a precursor to this seismic change. And what happened during COVID? There's a beautiful quote from someone who was on my show. He said, "At scale, cracks become chasms." And that's what happened with all these large companies and retail companies. All these little cracks became chasms. So you can kind of get ahead of it, or you can just wait for it to, to consume you, and it will consume you.
Completely agree. And you were also mentioning the health aspect of it. So let's jump over to Regina, because I'm imagining that there's some, I don't want to say a health bent to it. Answer the question the way you want, but what to you is change?
So my company is Life Transformation Solutions. So I'm all about transformation, right? And for me, it started with health. It's like all of the things that led me to where I am had to do with mental health and physiological health, and postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. And then I couldn't keep weight on. I went to the lowest weight after having my second kid that I've been since high school. I dropped 16 pounds, and I couldn't put any more weight on. And physiologically, or physical health and mental health, if you are not willing to go with the flow when life is trying to urge you to shift, to pivot, to change, the more you buck the system, the more you buck, the inevitability of change, the harder life tends to get. And I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but for me, the more I resisted, the more painful things got. And so for me, change is, all of the things that Joseph said. As far as the mind is concerned and the psychology of it, the mind likes what is familiar. It likes what is cozy and fuzzy and warm. And anything unfamiliar, which equals change, is something that we completely reject and resist. And so I find in my own personal experience, change has been, it has to be a very, you have to agree to the whole process of it. And even when you don't agree, life is going to try to find ways to make you agree. Things are going to get a little bit more challenging. But for me, when working with my clients, I see change happen all the time. And I think a lot of people like the saying, change takes time. Everything healing takes time. All things take time. And I like to challenge that because I don't actually believe that anymore. I've heard it so much in my life, but change does not have to be painful. It doesn't have to be as challenging as we make it. Everything comes down to the choice, right? The embracing of the change and going with the flow and laughing when things get tough. So for me, change is challenging, but there's so much reward in the challenge. And if we decide at some point, okay, life is trying to make me change, and we go, okay, what do you want me to do? Where am I supposed to go? Instead of why me or geez, here we go again. Change can be such a profound experience. And that's been what I've been experiencing both personally and with my clients.
I love it. And I completely agree. Change is a choice. And it also goes along with when you're on the right path, it's a lot easier than when you try to do things the old way.
Yeah.
Right. When you're like, okay, and this is something I encounter. It's you hear these, and I'm sure you do too. I've put all of my education in this area. I've been working in this field. AJ is going to jump in a second. Why? Well, because your life could be better when you choose to follow your passion, embrace your calling, whatever. AJ, I'd imagine you completely agree with this as someone who's worked. Well, you already shared your history, so go, you talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously my history is a lot of change, right? I jumped from higher education to working in a scientific organization to now being an entrepreneur. And so there's all of that. And like Regina, I actually had 2 babies while I was working on my doctorate. So I want to give you a Wi-Fi high five for being moms in school, because that's hard. And it's a lot of change all at once if we're talking about rapid changes, right? I actually do a lot more change work with organizations than I do with individuals. And so my focus is on how do we help people understand that there are changes that need to happen in the organization, and how do we help keep them calm and not get really riled up and nervous as we start to implement all of these changes in the organization, right? Because we know from what both Joe and Regina have just said, it's scary when change happens, but organizations have to change. They have to grow. They have to develop. They have to seek new markets. They have to research new things, whatever that change is. They have to take on new software. New software is one of the most stressful things you can do to an organization, but we have to do it occasionally. And so, I saw a talk recently where someone was talking about change, and they said that there's this fantastic theory of change where we say that organizations are frozen. They unfreeze as they decide that they're going to a new kind of change or something needs to happen. And then they have to refreeze, and they have to decide, this is how things are going to go. This is the direction that we are moving. And so how do you guide people through that process without unsettling them to a point where they can't do their work. But also, how do we make sure that we actually get to that refreezing part, that there's not so much change going on in the world that we are just stuck in this slush pile of half frozen, half melted, nobody knows what flavor we are, because there's so much going on all the time. And so I really love thinking about change from that systemic level, and how that systemic level impacts the individual.
Hey, AJ, so first of all,
Yeah.
is a Wi-Fi high five a Wi-Fi? That's my first question. I just coined in that, I get paid by the acronym. Second of all, the whole freezing and slush and great extended analogy. I love it. It actually made me think of, here's a very interesting overlay. So one of the things that we teach is this idea based on what's called the evolution and revolution of business. And it's based on a piece of research that was one of the most downloaded papers in Harvard Business Review's history. That actually says, organizations don't grow straight into the right. Like, it's not a straight line.
Oh, no.
There's a period of what's called evolution, and then there's a period of what they call revolution. So just instability and volatility. And that's when an organization hits the ceiling. And they have three choices there, right? Either the slow and steady decline, the stagnation, or breaking through. And then after that, the organization returns to evolution, to that smooth sailing.
Mhm.
I think it's fascinating that the evolution and revolution could actually beautifully kind of synchronize with this concept of freezing and unfreezing. Because again, too much change can actually become chaos and manic. So I think that was a great insight.
And the point that you just made, too much change equals a head explosion.
Yeah.
And that's going to stop. Well, I guess I will ask this as a question. What stops people from change?
Well, from
AJ.
my
Oh,
personal, sorry,
Regina.
I'll jump in.
Oh, no, please.
No, go for it,
ahead.
Regina.
From my personal perspective, and also from my working with clients' perspective, because everything is about working on a specific problem that the client is having difficulty moving through. Because of the whole coziness of like not wanting the unfamiliar to be a part of the experience, there could be so many different reasons why somebody doesn't change. But first, it always goes down to survival and safety. So how am I going to feel when this happens? Am I going to fail? Am I going to be in an unfamiliar territory that I don't know how to traverse? So a lot of that's just like the more vague aspect of things. But the biggest issue is, will I be good enough on the other side? Will I be somebody new that I don't know? Or will I be the same person, just a better version of myself? And how can I navigate that without my whole life blowing up? So there's a scary aspect of not changing and not shifting and not becoming flexible. And most people that I work with struggle with the idea that they can come out on the other side just as good, or if not better, than where they were. It's just the fear that keeps them stuck.
And I think this goes back to what Joseph was saying earlier. Go on.
No, I was going to say, I did a kind of a little study when I was writing Built to Suck, because the premise of this book was that the corporation was an endangered species. And if you looked at the corporation as an empire or dynasty, a civilization, I'd looked at 5,000 years of history, and every single civilization or dynasty or empire has failed and become extinct. And actually, there's a life cycle, funnily enough, of 250 years of dynasties, civilizations, empires. And the oldest corporation, as we know today, is the Bank of New York, which is at 240. So one of the things I did is I started to study the survival instinct. And the survival instinct is based on two things, two pillars, right? One is self-preservation, and the other one is adaptation. Self-preservation itself is predicated on fear and pain. And adaptation is based on hunger and risk. So the one is, don't kill me. I just want to survive to live another day. And the other one is, you know what, I'm going to kill you if that's what it takes, but it's the idea of evolution. And so one is back foot, just status quo, I just want to live to fight another day. Just like, don't knock it, right? Because the buck or the deer is able to just dart like that and evade a predator. But the other one is adaptation, that actually says we have no choice but to evolve, because if we don't, the world is going to pass us by. And so, yeah, it begins with fear, right? Fear of change, fear of failure. That's a huge part, fear of failure. And the antidote to it is 3 words: just do it.
And going back to, you change when not changing is either worse or not an option.
Exactly.
AJ, thoughts?
Yes, and let's just do it mindfully, right? So let's not get stuck in that slush pile in the middle. Change is necessary, absolutely, and let's do it on purpose and not just changing because the Joneses are changing or the Amazons are changing or the Googles are changing. As far as we can get away from the changes that those huge corporations force on all of us. So just making sure that we are being mindful of not going too fast, changing just for change's sake.
I completely agree with that. And I used to, in fact, I wrote about this analogy, which is, it's kind of a lateral puzzle, but, there's a train hurtling at, I don't know, 250 miles per hour. And the conductor gets wind of the fact that a bridge ahead is down, is kind of fallen or collapsed. So, what do they do? And I do this generally as an exercise with people. The point, though, is that if you change too quickly, right, you pull the emergency brake, the train is going to derail and people are going to die.
Mhm.
And if you change too slowly, gradual slowing down, the train's going to go off the bridge. And of course, what do you do? And it's lateral, because anything, right? I mean, you have an app to switch, or you use Waze, I don't know. But the fact is that change that happens too quickly can be just as bad as change that
Mhm.
happens too slowly. The change that happens too slowly is often the boiling frog syndrome, right? The water's so nice and warm until you're being served as frog's legs on a plate. So like, culturally, it helps, though, when your core values or your culture is built to embrace and adapt and AJ, I love the point about mindfulness, because when you're in a safe environment where you're not ostracized or chastised or humiliated for
Mhm.
taking a chance of doing something different, those are better environments that actually can celebrate change.
Mhm. I love the old boiling a frog analogy. And in working with individuals, oftentimes it becomes relevant, right? Where as a coach, you look at people and you say, have you noticed that the water is boiling? Maybe we should do something about this. Like, can I help you hop out, or can I help you figure out how to dump some colder water in there?
So change can be a team sport. I think that's something people forget, is you don't have to do it alone. And then the other part goes into, you can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people, which is why it's great when you have your people, whether it is your community, your coach, your family, your loved ones, but people, again, not cheering you on for cheering you on's sake, but genuine support in wanting you to have that better life, which I think is a different kind of rabbit hole altogether. We've got frogs, we've got rabbits. How do you Yes, let me pose this in the form of a question. And you've already dove into this a little bit, but what about that safety net? How do you, and then we'll go into, strategies for embracing change, but um years ago, I went to this writers group and everybody was giving this woman, she had just written the first chapter of a book, and everybody was giving her notes on everything to change, and I was just crawling out of my skin. I later learned that you had to attend 2 meetings before you were allowed to talk. No, I did not go back, but I found her afterwards and I said, you know, you keep going. And once you have your ideas fleshed out, then you can objectively look at feedback. So I think that finding the right safety net, that support system, is super important. So what advice or gonna say inspiration, motivation, what are things people should be aware of when looking for that? AJ?
Oh gosh. Uh, Find your people who support you doing the change because it's what's really best for you and not because of external forces. So, uh, I mentioned earlier, I, for 5 years, was pregnant and or nursing and working on my doctorate. I defended my dissertation in December of 2020. Misery. But people are always, how did you do that? How did you do that? Well, I had an incredible support system, right? My husband knew that, initially we were like, well, we can do this with one baby. This should be fine. Getting my doctorate has always been a goal that I've had, and he really appreciated that for me, and he really wanted me to have that goal. And then we had baby number 2, and we were like, not sure this is still a great idea, but we're halfway through, so we're going to keep going. And we know that the end goal is really meaningful, and that that was really going to serve me and our family in achieving that goal. And so we figured out what that meant for our family to make it through it. And that unwavering support, that cheering, that, hey, you should probably go take a nap now, please, you're grumpy. That kind of support is priceless. So if you can find the person who keeps your best interests at heart while also cheering you on, that's your person.
I love that. I use the term no backseat drivers in my book because my book is a road trip analogy. But yes, you want the support system that it has your best interest at heart. And sometimes they're not the same people. You're very fortunate when they are.
I had lots of other support as well, but my husband as my primary, he was getting up with the kids at night and stuff, so I wouldn't lose my mind. It's good.
Regina, you have thoughts on this, I'm guessing, as well?
I agree 100%, only because I had the opposite experience of AJ, while I was doing school full time and going through 2 pregnancies, breastfeeding for 4.5 years, co-sleeping for 6 years. My husband worked a lot and I just sacrificed myself in the process. And so I think if I had any advice is don't do that. Don't sacrifice yourself. Look for the support and make that the priority. And, because he was working many, many hours. And I thought, well, I'll just sleep in a different room with the kids and I'll wake up all night long. And, he's got to go to work in the morning. I wasn't thinking about the fact that I was doing school and all that at the same time. And I think that was a big part of my own personal mental crisis at the time. It's because I felt like I was doing so much and I wasn't faring on the other side. I was in a really poor place mentally. So I think, if you're in the middle of change, find the support that you possibly can find, and make sure it's somebody who's on the same page as you and rooting for you, because having people around that don't understand what you're doing makes things just so much more challenging. But in my own personal experience, it didn't matter that the challenge was going on and that I was struggling. If you're going to make a decision, follow it through, no matter how challenging it is, because the only thing that could possibly happen after you come out on the other end is you're a better person. You're a stronger person. You believe in yourself more. You have more confidence. You have more self-esteem. You show yourself like you feel so good. It's like, man, I did this. And, if you did it with help or without help, you're going to feel amazing on the other end. So do it anyway, regardless of what's available to you.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Can I add something about help?
Yes, please.
If you are able to afford it, do not be afraid to pay for help. I think so often women in our culture are culturalized that we need to do everything and we have to do it on our own. There is no shame in having somebody come and help clean the house, in somebody coming and taking care of the baby for a whole night so you can actually get 8 hours of sleep, in seeing a therapist, in seeing whatever doctors you need in order to recover from whatever change you are experiencing in your life. And so just a gentle reminder to us all that it's okay to seek help. And if that needs to be paid help and it's not, your partner or your family that can help you, there is no shame in that.
Yeah, lesson learned.
Mhm.
I just want to say that I have not breastfed, and although
Thank you for not disappointing me, because I
You know,
really was anticipating you would say
I
this.
come with my own laugh track as well. I have been breastfed before, but but uh, but I actually I mean to go from ridiculous back to sublime. I love those insights about asking for help, and not being so proud or scared, or I mean we we're in a mental health crisis right now. People are lonelier and more isolated than ever before. And, as one of the earliest boosters of social media, I'm now one of the biggest opponents of it, in terms of realizing how this force for good has been turned into a force for evil. Um, I was reaching earlier. Um, this is my sixth book, and I'm not even promoting it in the sense that I don't even talk about it. It's just, to me, this has become a part of me. This is like, I hold it close to my, this is me. This was created by an NFT designer, and it's called Forever Changed: How a Global Pandemic Changed My Direction, My Purpose, and My Life. And when I say I don't even promote it, it's just, I'll talk to people that I care about this book. I'm not interested in selling the book. I'm interested in helping people. But in this book, I mean, if you think about it, we have all, every single one of us have gone through the same thing, the same time. And so we can relate to each other for the first time. I mean, I can't relate to someone who has had a child, who has birthed a child. It's impossible. I can empathize, but I can't relate. But COVID, we can all relate. And the thing about it is that, you know, we we live our lives, and we only really change because the first question was about a safety net. When there is death, divorce, being laid off, a global pandemic, midlife crisis, we need to be pushed. We need to be pushed sometimes, or kicked in the butt, for us to actually make that change because of the safety net. And so part of what I wrote about in this book is, what if there was a formula? What if we could get ahead of it, so that we didn't have to only change when we were pushed, or actually like in that, with our backs against the wall? And I came up with just a simple formula that says, it's amor veritas in vigor, which is love what you do, be true to yourself, and stay the course. But it's really just part of a bigger message, which is life is so short. Life is too short for us just to be zombies, and just go through the motions, and get to a point where we look back, and we don't have any legacy, and we didn't necessarily leave the world in a better place than we found it. I can think of no better gift and more beautiful thing than to have a child and bring a child into this world, and then to protect that child from all the dangers and the evils and the dysfunction that, unfortunately, and by the way, rant almost over, the worst crime that we ever commit, or no, we don't commit it, that society commits to our children, is to basically beat the creativity, and the risk taking and the curiosity out of them, and get them to conform. And that's social media 101. What it's done is turned our poor little children into little vanilla clones and drones. So, we got a battle ahead of us. We've got our work cut out. But teaching them about change is one place to start.
And this is exactly why I love having these kinds of conversations. I mean, my subtitle is inspiration and motivation. Whatever we want out of life, it is within our control. We just have to make the choice to do things different. Or in the case of the people who join me on this stage, we've done it. This is what we've done. You can do it too. There's a huge, I think, benefit to share this knowledge, to share our missions. The D and the Deb method is determine your mission, because if we're not in this world to make it a better place, what is the point? So this is just my long way of agreeing. Absolutely. Because we all deserve happiness in some, if not all of our lives. So why not if you can't change everything, change one thing? What is one thing you could do to bring in that joy?
Can I add to that?
Oh, please.
So last night I had a client, and the issue, I'm a sleep specialist. So when people are struggling with sleep for short periods of time, long periods of time, I help them get back to sleeping and removing the underlying cause of what's going on. So my client yesterday, the end of the session came to the fear of change, right? Which is everything about this topic. And it's just so fitting that that's how it went down yesterday. But he said, I'm so afraid to change. And I said, well, are you telling me that you've never changed, not once in your entire life? And he's like, no, I change all the time. So then what makes you think that changing is a bad thing, that you can't do it, that, it's not a good thing? And so this is just how locked into fear we get, that we don't see how natural change is. From the time that we're born until the time that we die, our bodies are forever changing. Every 7 years, we're an entirely new person cellularly. We are a different mind every 7 years, also mentally. So what makes people think that change is such a scary thing? And it's part of that original programming. And having, when you're talking about, just the support that you need to help somebody with as far as assisting in the whole change process, it's everything that my work is about. It doesn't matter if it's about weight, or if it's about sleep, or if it's about procrastination. It all comes down to the fear of doing something differently, even if that thing that's differently is not really that scary once they finally realize that the thing that they've been telling themselves is the thing that's inhibiting their change. So it's such a transformation is such a beautiful process, and it can be a very fun process. And the going too fast or the going too slow, isn't that part of the ride? Even getting messy, right? So you're talking about beating the creativity out of your children, right? That's why I homeschool. So I homeschool because I want my kids to not have them, educated out of their creativity, which is a common conversation that we have as far as indoctrination in the education system, or the education complex, right? So creativity is just part of the process. And what do homeschool kids do best? They get messy. And their parents allow them to be messy, and they allow them to be themselves, and they allow them to make mistakes, and they allow them to just find their way through the mistakes and become a better person, have a better experience, have more confidence in the way that they do things. So change can, if you teach it, to your children, or have those conversations with your friends, your family, your colleagues, your employees, your students, or your clients, and they can actually internalize that change is okay, they'll have an easier time going through life. And when change happens, they'll be able to go with the flow easier. Because one of the things that we talk about in ACH, advanced conversational hypnosis, is you can't tell people what to do. Just because we know something doesn't mean that when we say it to somebody, they're actually going to listen. They're not going to actually do it. Because if they have a belief behind it that says, I can't do that, and the reason is because safety purposes, they're not going to change. They have to have what you were saying earlier, a reason to change, a circumstance that makes them go, okay, I'm done here. This is more painful than my belief. But most of the time, the belief, it doesn't matter how painful, if they're comfortable, they stay there, regardless of how discomforting their life is, the cycles are, the behaviors, the habits. So change is imminent, but if we can see that it's actually a fun experience, no matter how fast or slow, no matter how messy, and we can enjoy the process, that's where I think the biggest, the benefit, the biggest joy, the biggest experience, the biggest growth comes from.
I cannot believe it took this conversation so long for someone to mention fun. And I am really, really excited that you mentioned it, because is that not the point of changing, to make your life better?
I think it's the point of
And
life.
well, yeah. Okay. Point taken.
Yeah.
But that fun, that joy, that excitement, why do you love what do you love about what you do? Nothing. Okay, well, what can you love about what you do? What can you lean into to make that more a part of your life and enjoying that? It's so
It's a
100
choice.
gazillion times agree. Right. It is the choice. AJ, it looked like you wanted to say something. No? Okay. I think we should give people some goals. So I would love for you all to gift a goal to the audience. What is something that they could do today, tomorrow, immediately to better either change, embrace change, internalize, or just like own that what's next for them?
I
AJ?
think,
Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, if you,
She's like,
Regina,
no,
if you
don't
want,
talk to me.
I just like to, if you have your
You're
goal,
changing the order. You're mixing it
I'd
up.
like to change up the order, but
Sorry, I'm
Regina,
a rebel too.
if you, it's,
I have
and
spent my
I,
life going first because I'm A period, J period. So I'm always happy to defer to other people to go first for once.
And I'm always last. RR.
So we're going to
and
go with
I
RR,
always,
then JJ, and then AJ. How about that?
That's
right.
so funny.
as an extrovert, I always want to go first. So it's always a challenge if there's like, okay, who wants to go first? And I'm like sitting on my hands because I like to give other people a shot. Anyway, Regina, what goal would you like to gift to the audience?
So if you're big into journaling, if you like to write down like the struggles that you're going through because it helps you with clarity, one thing that I always would recommend, if that is something that somebody does, is write down what you're struggling with, but then write down the pros of things changing, becoming a different way. How would that change your life in a better way? And also the cons, how would that maybe challenge you? And then look at those answers that you've come up with. If the cons feel uncomfortable, ask yourself, why are they uncomfortable to you? What is it about those changes that would make you not happy? And look at the things that would, the pros, look at the pros. Why would this make me happy? What is it about these things that make me feel comfortable? And if it's just about being comfortable, why not change? Why not push yourself? Why not challenge yourself? Usually it's the fear. Well, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of if you have this con happen that will happen in your life? Because sometimes the wrong turns, the wrong choices end up being what we think is the wrong choice, ends up being the best possible place we could have ended up and the most rewarding. So if you're going to look at a problem that you're struggling with, look at it from every single perspective that you possibly can look at it from, because that's going to help you make a better choice as to whether or not you're willing to change. And if you can see that it's not that scary, you're going to be more likely to move towards that change, that goal, than if it just looks scary and you don't ask yourself these questions and go deeper as to what is it about them that makes you so scared.
I love that. And journaling is actually one of my favorite things. I think it's like the cure-all to everything, to get things out of your head and onto the page. So I love that you made that a goal. So thank you, Regina. Joseph, what goal do you want to gift?
Well, in Forever Changed, I basically, there's a little section at the end and it says, as I lay me down to sleep, ask yourself 5 questions. Number 1 is, did I show up for myself today? Number 2, did I show up for others today? And then we start to get into some very interesting areas, which is, if today was the last day of your life, would it have been worthwhile? If today was the only day of your life, would it have been worthwhile? If today was the best day of your life, would it have been worthwhile? It comes down, and if the answer is no to any of them, well, then change it. You wake up. The fact that you wake up tomorrow and that you're alive is a gift in of itself, and it's a gift to right the wrongs, or to get better, or to have another crack, another at bat. You get another opportunity to be able to move the chains. What a gift. What a gift, as opposed to just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, which of course is the definition of insanity. And so, this whole concept of pursue your what David Brooks calls your eulogy virtues, as opposed to your resume virtues. No one is going to say at your funeral, by your gravesite, about all the awards you won and the EBITDA and how many how you 10x'd. Nobody gives a damn about that. But they will talk about how the lives you touched, how you made them feel, and the impact that you had on this world, and on the people around you that depended on you, that you inspired along the way. But it's a continuum. And so there's a whole chapter called slippage, which is my biggest fear coming into this whole COVID period was that we would just slip back to our bad old ways. And it's happened in so many respects. We went from road rage to to plane rage to time rage. We've slipped back. We've forgotten already the most important lesson that we could have ever hoped to learn as humankind. And so forgive yourself. Give yourself grace. Recognize that there will be days when you do slip back. Check yourself before you wreck yourself and start again. You don't want to be Sisyphus and rolling that rock uphill constantly. But realize that some days you're going to make gains and strides, and other days you're going to fall back, and just keep moving. I call it plodding with purpose. Have a goal, have a purpose in mind. Some days will be tougher than others, but just keep moving forward. Just keep moving.
Love that. And when you be that moving target, always in motion, and always working towards the better, that also helps to make the world a better place. AJ, goal?
All right. My goal is to look back at a change that you made recently, whether it was a tiny change, like flossing your teeth every day, whether it was a major change, like changing a job, and celebrate it. Take a moment to look at that change and say, self, you did something great. I'm proud of you. I'm going to go, maybe if your goal was flossing, you shouldn't go eat a cookie, but like give yourself a cookie or a cake or a pat on the back, whatever it is that you find to be motivating. And I want you to celebrate some kind of change that happened recently in your life. The reason is that we all have a little bit of Pavlov's dogs in us. We love to be rewarded for our behaviors. If we do something and then we get something good out of it, then we're more likely to do it again. And so we've talked a lot today about how scary change can be and how unnerving it can be. So let's take a minute to celebrate, to give ourselves a cookie and give ourselves that positive reinforcement for doing whatever the change is that we have experienced recently. And it looks like Deb's got gold stars for us all, which I love.
When I led my first goal group, this back when I lived in Chicago, and I've been in LA for more than 20 years, so do as much math as you want. But I started this writer support group, and it was all about, what did you accomplish? How can we support you? What are you doing next time? And one day someone said, where's my gold star? And they were kidding, but I thought it was a fabulous idea. And ever since then, whenever I do anything in person, my gold stars come with me, because just for showing up, you get a gold star. So that's something to celebrate as well. So I love it. I'm a big fan also of the win journal. So at night, when you're looking at, your pros and cons of making the change, or you're reassessing your day, could it have been different? What did you do that was amazing? And what impressions you want to leave on the world. And then in the celebration aspect, even if you take like literally a minute every day and write down some wins, that way when you're thinking about how hard it is, you just have to look at your list and you're like, hey, I'm doing pretty awesome. And sometimes you need a cookie, and sometimes you just need that reminder that, hey, you're doing great. And if you're tuning in, let us tell you you are doing great, because looking into ways that you can make your life better, that you can embrace change, that's a huge win in and of itself. Wonderful conversation. Where can people learn more about you? And I'm going in traditional alphabetical order this time. So,
All right.
AJ, Joseph, where can people learn more about you?
No, give it to AJ.
Never
I think let's go first name A.
All right, I'll go. You can find me at thrivingibis.com. That's my company website. That's where a great place to learn about all of the cool stuff that I have going on, my different trainings, workshops, coaching, all of that good stuff. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. And so if you want to find me there, I am LinkedIn /AJ Lauer. I post on there just about every day. And so I would love to see you all there and interact with you in the virtual space.
And when I do the recaps, I will put your website links, but I always put the LinkedIn links as well. So to drop a note to say that this is where we met, or you learned about one or all of us, and make that connection. So thank you.
Amazing.
Joseph, where can
It's all
people
good.
learn more about you?
I don't know, everywhere. I mean, I'm suddenly like, Google me. No, I linktree.com/Jaffe Juice. But the book's website is foreverchange.life, as in get a life, yours. eosworldwide.com/Joseph-Jaffe is to find out about my coaching business. And then my two babies, my big baby is Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous, at Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous on YouTube. And then I started a new show just because I didn't have enough work to do, called The Entrepreneur's Journey. So that's at Healthy and Smart. And that's on YouTube because, a la Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, I feel entrepreneurs deserve to be celebrated as the heroes that they are and heroines that they are. I think that's
Awesome.
everything.
Or go to the link tree and find all of the links that way.
I don't know that I've updated the other stuff up there, but
Well,
I
now
better
you've
do
got
that.
a goal, right?
I'm doing it as soon as we get off
Awesome.
this.
Regina, where can people learn more about you?
So I'll make it really easy. LifeTransformationSolutions.com is my website. Every tab on there has something different. So if you're looking to improve your health through herbs, nutraceuticals, phototherapy patches, I have a product recommendation page. All of my social media is on my Follow Me tab. My class, if you are a professional in the mental health and wellness industry and you're looking to revolutionize your practice, change it up, get faster results, better breakthroughs, epic outcomes that are multiple outcomes, then I have a class coming up June 21st and 22nd, masterclass. It's a program, so you join and you never have to pay again. So all of that information is on there. If you're looking to work with me one-on-one, whether you're a health coach, you want a health coach, or you have sleep issues and you want an ACH session on that to get rid of it, I'm pretty good at it. I help my clients in 1 to 2 sessions, and it's life-changing because not only does the problem that they came in with gets fixed, but many, many things happen after that. The change just keeps happening. The transformation keeps happening. It's like a metamorphosis. So everything is there, lifetransformationsolutions.com.
Awesome. Yes. And that's why, we talk about professional goals, but the personal goals just as important, because when things are going great in the professional life, it impacts your personal life and vice versa. So we want you as well-rounded and as enthusiastic and as healthy in all of the ways as you can. So, and I am at the Deb Method everywhere. You can get recaps at thedebmethod.com/blog. And if you want a little I don't want to say littler of a pitch, but a push, you can grab a copy of your goal guide at Amazon or your favorite place to buy books. And if you want to learn more about my goal coaching and my workshops, you can go to thedebmethod.com/goalswithdeb. And also every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific, I am live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And you can also subscribe to GoalChat, which is on the Marketing Podcast Network, at your favorite podcast platform. Yeah, I think that's all the Deb stuff. Again, wonderful conversation. What final words of wisdom do you want to leave everybody with? And we're going to go reverse first name. Regina, final thought.
Don't wait to make changes. Don't let your fear get the better of you. Push yourself out of your comfort zone and just leap. Make the whatever you think it is that you need to do, just try it. The worst that can happen is it doesn't work out.
I love that, but also the extra thing that you said in there, which is whatever you think you need to do, you know. So baby steps, but just start.
Yeah.
Love it. Joseph, final thought.
I'm going to give you the narrative of the book, which is if you didn't change during this period of time, then you wasted an opportunity. And I'm using quantum superposition because this terrible, disgusting, tragic thing was also the source for transformation and becoming. But don't worry, because if you didn't change, there's still time. There's always time. And what if there's a formula? There is, which is amor veritas vigor. Love what you do, be true to yourself, and stay the course. That third part is so important. The stamina, the endurance, the energy, the ability just to keep moving. Never give up, never give up, because there's always a way.
There is always a way. So keep at it. And I love that. If you haven't changed yet, you're here, you want to, go. You can, totally. AJ, final thought.
Final thought. When you are scared about a change, take a deep breath and drink a glass of water. Give your body what it needs to stay centered so that it can handle the change that you are throwing at it. And then when you make it through, take a moment to celebrate.
Or like 5 moments to celebrate.
Or 5 moments to celebrate.
Celebrate everything, because
celebrate everything. Life is short.
In choosing yourself, I mean, it's a gift, right? So choose yourself, take the steps, do it, because it's all in your hands. So thank you again, AJ, Joseph, Regina, for joining me. Thank you for tuning in to GoalChat, whether you're watching us live, the replay, or listening to us. Thank you for choosing yourself, your goals, and change. So go on out there and go for it, because we know you can do it.